Good afternoon. Welcome and thank you for joining the WEIM Governing Body General Session meeting. Please note that all audience audio connections are in listen-only mode. There will be an opportunity to submit public comments during today's conference. We will give you instructions on how to enter the public comment queue at that time. With that, I'll turn the call over to Chair Andrew Campbell. Please go ahead.
Hey, well, welcome to the June 20th General Session meeting of the Western Energy and Balanced Market Governing Body. Thank you for joining us today. First, I'm going to go to Kathy Anderson with Idaho Power for some safety briefing for the folks here in the room.
All right, so for those that were here this morning, you get the same spiel this afternoon. So first of all, foremost, welcome to Idaho Power, welcome to Idaho, you're welcome for the weather. We're special for you all. And if you need to have the restrooms out through this door, please. If you go out that door, you're going to be having a problem getting through the gates. Use this door down the hall. Go right on your left. If you need some water, there's also a water fountain by the restrooms. So safety. If we need to evacuate this building, we will exit out the doors and we will go to the parking lot, not directly across from us, but kitty cornered from us, and we'll gather right there. And I will tell you, there's a lot of construction down here. There's a lot of frustrated drivers down here, and they are not necessarily watching for you. So if you're crossing the streets in downtown Boise, please watch for yourselves and make eye contact and make sure that they are seeing you, because we have near misses at this location almost daily of people nearly getting hit by cars. So with that, I keep trying, but they keep moving on me. Yeah, so not yet. Actually, all right, so with that, if you have any questions, I will get back, but thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Now, maybe I'll make a couple of remarks just about the audio visual in the room here for folks who are here, and to also so people who are joining virtually kind of know what's going on. We were able to figure most things out during the Regional Issues Forum meeting earlier. But we're not able to use individual mics within the room. So everyone who speaks up here on the dais, or if you're making public comment, please speak up. The microphones are in the ceiling. From feedback, I understand that people can generally hear quite well, but if someone's speaking more quietly, it may be difficult. So definitely project when you speak today. Also, mics are in the ceiling. You should assume they're on all the time. So keep that in mind if you're going to engage in any sidebar conversations out in the room. So that's on you to do that. Sounds like there's maybe Zoom. Is anyone in the room logged into Zoom? Okay, we'll try to proceed. So I'll turn it to Corporate Secretary Roger Collins for the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. Chair Campbell, we'll start with you.
Yes, here.
Vice Chair Konzilka.
Here.
Member Decker.
Here.
Member Prescott.
Here.
Member Webb.
Here.
Hopefully I'm speaking loud enough.
Okay, thank you, Roger.
Thanks.
So now we will go to public comment. This is public comment for items not on the agenda. You can raise your hand in the room or raise your hand in Zoom. Marvin, if you could please initiate public comment.
Thank you. As we move to the public comments, feel free to place yourself in the comment queue by utilizing the raise hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. When it is your turn to unmute, a pop-up message will appear prompting you to approve the host request to unmute. You will be unmuted upon approving this request. If you're connected through phone only, you may dial #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the queue. Please state your name and affiliation when unmuted. And we're currently not receiving any requests.
Okay, thank you, Marvin. And I see no public comment in the room here. So next we have the decision on the minutes from the May 21st, 2024 Governing Body General Session meeting.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. So need a motion to approve the May 21, 2024 General Session minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Second was Anita.
I'm closer to two.
Motion passes. Back to you, Chair Campbell, for agenda item number 3.
Okay, great, thank you. So before we move to agenda item 3, I just wanted to make a couple opening comments. So the EIM governing body is committed to holding meetings in a variety of locations in the market footprint. We were in Salt Lake City last June, Boise today, and we're holding a joint meeting with the ISO Board of Governors in the Phoenix area in September. I mean, virtual meetings are very convenient, but in my view, progress toward deepening regional market coordination is built on the sort of relationships and trust that are best developed face to face. So it's nice to be able to mix these up, virtual and in person, being throughout the region. Thank you to Idaho Power, including Kathy Anderson and other support staff here for hosting us today. This has included providing the support for the hybrid meeting, not something you can take for granted. And finding suitable locations like this turns out to be one of the barriers to having meetings throughout the region. So we're very grateful Idaho Power has made this very easy today. Also, we have been joined today by Idaho Commissioner John Hammond, the hometown regulator. He stepped out of the room right now. He's also Idaho's representative on the body of state regulators. Our relationship with the utilities regulators through the BOSSR is very important to ensure the market rules appropriately consider diverse state policies. And on that, I'm going to turn to item 3, which is the update from the body of state regulators. We're being joined virtually by Haley Williamson, Chair of the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada and Chair of the body of state regulators. Chair Williamson.
Thank you so much, Chair Campbell. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. And I just want to echo some of your statements you said earlier. I think it's wonderful that you all are able to meet in person. I hope to join you soon at one of those, a little bit closer to home, but also just thank you all for your flexibility in the hybrid approach. I think the face-to-face is crucial and important, but I can't thank you all enough for opening these virtually as well, and allowing us to participate that way. It's really nice, and the BOSSR appreciates it too. And I did also, I heard Commissioner Hammond maybe just stepped out, but I wanted to give him a shout out, thank him for being there in person. And just to say how wonderful it is that we have someone from BOSSR in the room there today. So with that, I will continue on to our update. The BOSSR held its June meeting last Friday. BOSSR Chair, Vice Chair Aguilera, who is also the BOSSR representative on the nominating committee, provided an update on the work the committee has conducted thus far this year. I don't want to get ahead of today's agenda, but I do want to thank Vice Chair Kanzioka and Governing Body Member Rebecca, for their time and dedication this past year. I'd also like to thank the nominating committee for all their hard work in the selection process, as well as give a huge shout out to Vice Chair Aguilera for all of his work and participation as the BOSSR representative to the nominating committee. At last Friday's meeting, we received an update on the Westwide Governance Pathways Initiative. This was a really important meeting for the BOSSR. It was the first time that the BOSSR had been briefed by Pathways. We really appreciated their input. CAISO was there, appreciated their input as well. The Friday's presentation was to understand step 1, the step 1 proposal, and the impacts it will have on the EIM and the EDM governance structure. As you are well aware, the BOSSR has participated in the development and evolution of governance of both the EIM and the EDM over the years, and most recently supported the joint authority model for the extended day-ahead market as an appropriate incremental step towards a full RTO. As the Pathways Initiative aims to continue to incrementally move towards a more independent governance model for the region, the BOSSR continues to look forward to work with Pathways and stands ready for the potential expanded role of the BOSSR that may come its way. So that was a really important meeting. We will keep up on Pathways and keep that information and dialogue flowing. I also want to give a really big shout out to the WEIM staff. In between BOSSR meetings, they've been doing a really great job. This iteration of the BOSSR has been learning a lot via email and via some notes coming from WEIM on what else is happening at CAISO, and WEIM is just wonderful at keeping us updated. So between meetings, the BOSSR continues to stay informed of the various working groups that impact the EIM and the EDM. We've been particularly focused on the price formation enhancements, the GHG coordination, and the resource adequacy modeling. So thanks again for that, and we're continuing to learn on those topics. Bosser's next meeting is Friday, July 12th. And with those short remarks, that concludes my report today. I am happy to try to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Chair Williamson. Governing body members, any questions, comments? I don't see any. Yeah, thank you very much for those remarks. It's great to hear the Bosser is also focusing on pathways and bringing folks up to speed, hearing presentations on that. It's certainly very, very important, and Bosser will be among many perspectives that'll be important to hear from through that process.
Thank you.
So next, we're going to hear an update on the Regional Issues Forum from RIF Chair Meg McNall, a partner with Thompson Coburn, who represents the 6 cities.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Campbell, Vice Chair Concealca, and members of the governing body. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a brief update on behalf of the Western EIM Regional Issues Forum. And my update today is pretty short. As you know, the RIF held its second meeting of 2024 this morning here in Idaho. And during our meeting, sector liaisons Vijay Sachal and Rahul Kalaskar led in-depth panel discussion dealing with the topic of virtual power plants and their integration into Western electricity markets. We heard from speakers representing Portland General Electric, the California ISO Grid Lab, and Renew Home regarding the current status of deployment of these types of resource technologies. And there was a good discussion of policy and operational issues to consider as adoption of PPP technologies expands in the West. Second sector liaison Lindsay Schleckaway held a discussion with Kirstine Rock of Pacific Core and Jim Shetler on behalf of Bank regarding their organization's respective approaches to implementation of the extended day-ahead market, which is an important and very timely topic for stakeholders throughout the West as we look toward implementation in 2026. Second, the RIF continues to monitor the CAISO's work on its policy initiatives catalog and roadmap process, and will continue to do so in connection with our 2024 roundtable activities, which largely took place earlier this year and looking ahead to next year's roundtable process. We also note the CAISO's commencement of a stakeholder initiative related to step 1 of the West-wide governance pathways process, and we are likewise monitoring. Finally, the next scheduled meeting of the RIF will take place in Sacramento on October 29th in conjunction with the CAISO's Stakeholder Symposium. We're in the process of evaluating topics for that meeting, and we encourage those who are planning to attend the symposium to plan to come a day early so that you can participate in the RIF. That concludes my update. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. Any questions or comments from the governing body? Yes. Okay, Nebraska.
Thanks, Meg. Appreciate the update. I just want to give a little shout out to the RIF. And I've watched it develop for the last 8 years to what it is today, and it's great. Case in point was the virtual power plant presentation. That's something that normally we wouldn't be involved in, but it gives us a heads up that it's coming down the road and it's going to impact the markets. So I really encourage RIF to keep looking out there to kind of identify things that will impact the market ahead of before they get into the policy initiative state. Find that very helpful.
Thank you.
Mr. Confiolca.
John said it well, so I'll just ditto what John said, that it was very appreciative and it was a great learning. Thank you.
Now to say thank you, RIF, for organizing a meeting in person in conjunction with the governing body. That format has worked well, and I'm glad you're able to have virtual participation also, so you get a really robust sector participation.
We are happy to do that, and I'm glad it worked out. Thank you for accommodating our schedule. I know it was tricky to work out a full day of meetings, but thank you.
So now we're going to go a little bit out of order from the printed order. We're next going to go to the decision on the EIM governing body nominations. Then we're going to go to the election of the governing body chair and vice chair, and then we'll go to the what's listed as item 5, the briefing on ISO West-wide transmission activities. So for this next item, I will introduce Stacy Crowley, the ISO's Vice President of External Affairs.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. And just a real quick introduction. Nicole Hughes has been engaged
in our nominating committee efforts for several years, and appreciate all of her work. She's here to present to you their suggested slate for every 5 member vacancies. So with that, I'll just turn it right over to Nicole. Thank you, Nicole, for joining.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great, thanks, Stacy, and thank you, Chair Campbell and Vice Chair Kanzioka, for the opportunity to walk you through the WEIM nominating committee process. Next slide, please. So this year there were 2 members whose terms were up in June, Vice Chair Kanzioka and Rebecca Wagner. And just to remind you, the governing body members are nominated by a nominating committee that is a diverse set of stakeholder representatives from the individual sectors of the WEIM. And I serve currently as the chair of that committee. The nominating committee began our process in February of this year, and both Vice Chair Kanzioka and Rebecca Wagner indicated their desire to continue to serve additional terms. Next slide, please. So both members have, proven themselves as very valuable members of the governing body. And though Rebecca's initial term has been short so far, she was a very strong candidate when elected last year, and the nominating committee quickly came to the conclusion that we probably did not need to go to the process of seeking outside candidates for this position, because we felt really strongly that both members had the right types of skills and expertise that were needed to continue to serve. Next slide, please. This is a list of current nominating committee members. You can see the sectors on the left-hand column and the names of the representatives on the right-hand column. Want to thank all of the members of the nominating committee, even though this time around it was a short body of work that we conducted. It still took time, and this is volunteer time that people are doing in addition to their day jobs, and really appreciated getting to know a few of the new members of the nominating committee, and thought the process was a very successful one. Next slide, please. So just to talk through our decision-making process pretty quickly here, this flow chart shows sort of how we got to the decision that we are going to present to you today. So after both Vice Chair Kanzioka and Rebecca Wagner indicated their interest in serving additional terms, the nominating committee met several times to talk about whether or not we should bring in the executive search firm to identify additional candidates. Members of the nominating committee then went back to their individual sectors to solicit feedback, and overwhelming feedback that we received back from our sector members was that it didn't feel necessary to go and initiate an executive search for additional candidates. And then we came quickly to the conclusion that we wanted to make a recommendation to renominate both Vice Chair Kanzioka and Rebecca Wagner. So next slide, please. So the formal recommendation for the, I guess it's actually on the next slide, but we'll just go here. So the formal recommendation for the nominating committee is that both Vice Chair Kanzioka and Rebecca Wagner be reappointed for terms beginning this July and ending June 30th, 2027. That concludes a short, brief discussion of our process as the nominating committee, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Nicole. Before going to public comment, any questions? There will be time for comments after public comment. Okay, let's go to public comment. Operator, can you please provide the instructions.
As we move to public comments, feel free to place yourself in the comment queue by utilizing the raise hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. When it's your turn to be unmuted, a pop-up message will appear prompting you to approve the host's request to unmute you. You will be unmuted upon approving this request. Please also remember to state your name and affiliation. At this point, I do not see any questions.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. And any public comment in the room? Okay, now go to governing body members. Any comments prior to motion?
Just thank the nominating committee for their work and to bring us such ideal candidates.
So I would only comment, both Vice Chair Consiolka and Member Wagner have both been valuable members of our governing body. Thank you. I can't even think. And I think I'm really pleased to see that the nominating committee saw that and is making a recommendation that they continue their service. Because they both are really committed public service, and you see it in the preparation that they do, and the conversations that we get to have with them. So I am in support of their candidacy.
I'm going to sort of continue on the same theme. First, thanks to the nominating committee for the work to assess what kinds of expertise the governing body needs and to act in the interests of the market. And even though this was a straightforward process, ultimately, I know that still involves a lot of work just to go through those steps and a lot of careful consideration. I did just want to comment. I mean, the stakeholder-driven nominating process, I think, is really important for creating confidence that the governing body is independent and that we listen to stakeholders and that we make well-considered decisions. Thanks to Nicole in particular for all the work you've done to really lead the nominating committee process for several rounds. That's a lot of work outside of your day job. So thank you so much for that. And I'm also thrilled to see members Consiolka and Wagner that they want to return. I'm very happy to see them be nominated. I've really appreciated working with both of them. Just comment, I mean, Vice Chair Consiolka has been a persistent bridge builder, especially with stakeholders in the Desert Southwest who may have not had as many years of working with the California ISO. And member Wagner brings in important expertise from her experience as a state regulator, being just around state government in general. That's so important. And also her experience on governance, going back to the creation of the governing body. Governance, again, is top of the agenda here. So really grateful to have member Wagner able to continue to serve. Hope you will continue to serve after this. But now turned over to Robert for.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. Move that the Western Energy and Balance Market Governing Body reappoints Robert Consiolka for a term beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30, 2027, and reappoints Rebecca Wagner for a term beginning July 1, 2024 and ending June 30, 2027 as members of the Western Energy and Balance Market Governing Body.
So moved.
So second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I didn't know if we had to.
You cannot oppose it.
Okay.
Any opposed?
2027? No,
The motion passes 5-0.
Yay. Okay. Congrats.
Yeah.
So now we'll go to agenda item 7, which is the election of the EIM governing body chair and vice chair. Secretary Collins, kick this off.
I'm happy to do so. So this is, as you say, this is for the election of the governing body chair and the vice chair effective July 1st, as we do every year. And so this is your opportunity for some discussion and to make some nominations for that. So is there anyone that would like to start out? John?
Yeah, well, in light of the fact that we've had 2 members be reappointed, I suggest to put them to work by having Rob Consiolka be our chair and Rebecca Wagner be our vice chair for the next year.
Is that a motion, John?
That is motion. Well,
I will
it's a
second.
nomination.
A nomination.
Yeah, we're not really, I'll do the motion officially, but is there any other comments or suggestions or?
I think that was an excellent suggestion.
Okay. What about you, Robin? Okay, hearing none.
I'll just say, so apparently, normally the chair move into sort of a senior fellow position as evidenced by John and Anita. And so apparently I did not meet the threshold of moving into a senior fellow type position. And so I'm now being considered for chair. So I kind of get that experience and round out experience so I can ultimately be there. And but in all seriousness, I appreciate the trust and confidence of the governing body members of considering me for chair. As everyone here in the room and watching online knows, we have a tough road over this next year. Not that last year wasn't easy and the previous year wasn't easy, but we have
Next year won't easy.
we have a lot of big things on the table and kind of going back to the previous nominations, I'm really pleased that for the first time since I've been on the governing body, we're going to have a slate that returns. We're not going to have a turnover. And I think that experience and that wealth of knowledge is going to be very helpful in seeing things through. So I'll just say thank you, and I'll do my best to lead this group and make certain that we meet the needs of our constituency.
Rob, any other comments before we go to public comments? Can we check online for public comment, please?
Once again, if you would like to make a comment, please feel free to place yourself in the comment queue by utilizing the raise hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. And there will be a notification to accept to be unmuted once you do raise your hand. And once again, I do not see any questions at this time.
Silas, any comments in the room? Raise your hand. If there's anything else from the governing body, I think we go to a motion. Move that the WEIM governing body elects Rob Conzioka to serve as chair of the WEIM governing body pursuant to section 3.3 of the charter for the Western Energy and Balanced Market Governance, effective July 1, 2024 to June 30, 2025, or until such time thereafter as a successor is elected. Move that the WEIM governing body elects Rebecca Wagner to serve as vice chair of the WEIM governing body effective July 1, 2024 to June 30, 2025, or until such time thereafter as a successor is elected, whose role will include substituting for the chair when the chair is unable to fulfill its duties due to conflicts, absence, or unforeseen circumstances. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you and congratulations.
Thanks.
I think that I was really enthusiastic.
Chair Campbell, can I just make a quick statement?
Sure.
I just want to thank you for your year in leadership position as chair. It was wonderful to work with you in that role, and I'm glad you have a full complement returning again this year. So thank you very much for your service.
Thanks, Stacy. I very much enjoyed the year, and I'm very thrilled to be passing the baton back to Rob. And,
If you don't mind me making one comment to add on to what Stacy just said, a lot of things happen that aren't always wide open evident, and they may be more subtle. And Andy has made a number of improvements and changes over the last year, and I think they've been really, really positive in allowing us to be more productive and be able to contribute a little bit better. And I hope to continue with those improvements that Andy has made. So thank you.
I'll also mention there's a few other kind of roles that each of us hold, and some of those will also be rotating July 1. So some of these are externally facing. So I'll just mention these just for awareness. One of the members serves on the Department of Market Monitoring Oversight Committee as a non-voting member. That will be Anita Decker. And please tell me if you don't want to do these things that I think you're doing. I'm expecting Anita Decker in that role. Governing body market expert. We have a liaison to work closely with the market expert. That's going to be me. Regional Issues Forum liaison will be Rebecca. And then 9 months from now or something like that, nominating committee, we have a non-voting member on that, and John Prescott has volunteered for that. So just wanted to mention those other roles rotating.
So one of the things about John being on the nominating committee, so he terms out after 3 terms. Okay, John ages out, so it's ideal that he's on the nominating committee because he's bringing that experience of what we're looking for. But I would also put out there in the universe that the nominating committee is going to need some names, and for people to be thinking now about names come January, February. So just to be thinking about that, you know, I think we've done a lot of really good service to the region. And John has been a tremendous asset and historian to what started with Rebecca on the transition committee. And so we're going to need someone that has that depth to sit in the seat, but not replace him.
Thank you, Member Decker. So now we're going to go back to its item number 5, which is briefing on ISO West-wide transmission activities. Just wanted to give a couple introductory remarks. So the transmission system, it is the physical backbone that enables regional energy markets. And there's a lot of important transmission activity ongoing in the West, including significant projects involving our host Idaho Power. The EIM governing body does not vote on transmission plans or specific transmission projects, but I'm really interested to hear this next informational briefing so we can hear more about in this forum about what ISO is doing on transmission planning and other activities. Since these things impact not just the market, not just ISO balancing area, but the entire region. There will be an opportunity for governing body members to ask questions and for public comment as part of this. So now I will introduce Neil Miller, who is joining us virtually. He is ISO's Vice President of Infrastructure and Operations Planning.
Good afternoon, and first I'll check if people can hear me.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the opportunity to give the briefing today. If I could call up the presentation, please. So next slide, please. So first, I'll just start with the obligatory statistics about the ISO footprint, just to help put things in context, of course, for people that might not be familiar with the exact size and scope. 51 gigawatts of peak load, 80% of California as part of our service territory and a small part of Nevada. The Western Energy Imbalance Market, of course, operates in 11 states and extends into the parts of Canada. And there are currently 42 balancing areas and transmission operators receiving RC services. Now, our transmission planning activities focus on the California VA requirements in particular, but reach, of course, beyond our own footprint with the integration with the West. Next slide, please. I did want to provide just a bit of information about the activities inside California, because it's also critical in helping understand and provide context for some of our out-of-state activities as well. So we are in a very aggressive cycle with developing considerable resources to meet the near and long-term reliability and clean energy goals in California. Some of the statistics on the left reflect the portfolio planning coordinated with the local regulatory authorities and state agencies in California. Our current 10-year plan that was just approved by our board in May was based on achieving 85 gigawatts of development by 2035. Our 20-year outlook was previously developed that was in released in May of 2022, was targeting 120 gigawatts of new capacity being added to the grid by 2040. And the portfolios that are being used to develop the update to our 20-year outlook call for approximately 165 gigawatts of resources by 2045. And this reflects both the increasing load growth that's reflected in the graph to the right, as well as the transition to clean energy overall. Next slide, please. Now, the 20-year outlook that we initially released in 2022 did provide the strategic direction for our annual transmission planning processes moving forward, and also highlighted the need for interregional coordination. Now, the original layout of our 20-year outlook is on the left, showing the overall increased reliance on in-state resources, offshore resources, and considerable increased reliance on out-of-state resources as well, especially in the form of the out-of-state wind. We are updating our 20-year outlook. We do expect to release the update by the end of June or early into July. But it's remaining relatively consistent with the original outlook, but also projecting out the additional 5 years and looking at the additional resource requirements. The growth in resource development has also been reflected in an acceleration in the transmission planning itself. That really started to take off with the release of the 21-22 transmission plan that saw about $3 billion in transmission, which was a significant increase from our historical average of around $500 million a year if one looks over the last 10 years. A number of those projects were driven by reliability, but also the larger projects tended to be tied to a smaller number, but larger policy-driven projects that split about 50-50 between reliability and policy-driven needs. The 2022-2023 transmission plan approved last year really started to show the increase in policy-driven requirements totaling $5.5 billion. And that was before the participation in the SWIP North project was later approved as an extension of the plan. The 23-24 transmission plan that was approved by our board this May reflected 19 reliability projects for $1.5 billion in additional investment, as well as 7 policy-driven projects totaling just over $4.5 billion. Now, the interesting part about this year's transmission plan is the large policy-driven development was really focusing on the first wave of requirements to access North Coast offshore wind. So that was a major step for us. We do recognize that those projects have a very long lead time. So we saw that while we do recognize industry concerns around the new technologies and all the development that needs to take place for that to happen, we simply had to get started. So we really appreciated the support of our Board of Governors with recognizing the need to move forward given the lead times. Now, where this actually transitions then into some of our out-of-state development, if I could move to the next slide, please. We have been working bilaterally with a number of parties, as well as working through the established planning processes to explore transmission opportunities, especially as they arise. The S-Line project with IID that was started many years ago is now coming online this year. Also, the 10 West project, Delaney Colorado River transmission line, item number 2, also just came into service recently, and that was approved back in 2014. Of course, more recently, there's been more attention on the development of the subscriber participating transmission owner model, which has been approved by FERC as a viable construct for new participating transmission owners. And both Transwest Express and SunZia have been approved by our board as subscriber participating transmission owner models or transmission owners, with their transition to that status being based on when they actually come online. Of course, we're also, I already mentioned that we are also looking to participate in the SWIP North transmission project, which is moving through a staged process as our participation has been approved by our Board of Governors, but we have to work out the appropriate arrangements that will ultimately be subject to FERC approval as well. So we've been trying to capitalize on these opportunities. If I could move to the next slide. We've also, of course, been participating in the formal interregional coordination process that was originally developed under FERC Order 1000 as approved by FERC. So that includes our coordination and interregional coordination of information and process with WestConnect and with Northern Grid. We do align our annual cycle with the 2-year cycle for each of those organizations. That framework also included an interregional cost allocation framework, which in the West has not actually been utilized, as we have not been successful at getting any interregional projects actually moving through that particular process. We do appreciate the concerns around the interregional cost allocation that was built into FERC Order 1000. And we've instead been having more success working through negotiated agreements, relying on FERC's policy statement on negotiated agreements that was developed in 2022. If I can move to the next slide, please. In addition to the formal process under our FERC Order 1000 base tariff, we've also been coordinating through a number of other avenues. This is a fairly comprehensive list, but it probably isn't complete. It seems new initiatives are popping up on a routine basis. There's our Order 1000, the information sharing and coordination processes under the established FERC proceedings. The Department of Energy, of course, has been conducting various studies that I've listed here. WEC system planning studies, the NERC interregional transfer capability studies, and we're also supporting, of course, the West Tech effort, Western Transmission Expansion Coalition, as well as participating in any opportunities that arrive through CREPC as well. We also engage in interregional informal discussions with our transmission planning peer groups to make sure that we're staying on top of developments and looking for potential opportunities. And we've also created the bilateral opportunities, such as the subscriber PTO approach. We're continuing to monitor and engage in any process reform conversations that are also going on, including just a few, including development of the Grid Deployment Office's loan programs and looking for opportunities there, as well as the National Interest Electricity Transmission Corridor framework being established by the Department of Energy. Next slide, please. So I really did just want to reinforce that our regional and interregional transmission planning really depends on exploring opportunities and recognizing where there are challenges. We do look to coordinate and collaborate to identify the most effective solution overall. And we do see maintaining that good dialogue in the West is absolutely critical. We do see as well that the interregional transmission planning does need to be coordinated with effective resource planning. We simply cannot wait until resources are developed and then look for transmission opportunities to optimize around those resources. And as part of a fundamental process alignment inside our footprint, as well as shaping our interregional coordination, we do see needing to tighten the linkages between procurement, interconnection, and planning processes across the board. We're also, of course, looking for funding opportunities to help lower the delivered cost of energy to consumers, and wanting to be as flexible and creative as we can in looking for opportunities. So that's a bit of a thumbnail of what we've been up to over the last little while. I'd really look forward to any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Questions or comments from the governing body? Decker.
So Neil, this is Anita. Just a couple questions on slide 5. So there's a couple other projects that have been maybe announced more recently, because I noticed that there's not only things that the 5 projects that are listed here, but there's some others that I identified on that map as well. And so I'm thinking about like green light, like showing it. And then the project that was just announced from Central Oregon to the California border by PAC. So I'm just thinking about some of the other majors that maybe in the future you might just show as proposed by others, but we can notice that they're out there.
Very good point, and we will add to this list. Thank you.
Kanzioka. Hey, Neil, this is Rob. You presented a lot of good information, a lot of positive news and takeaways. Based upon all the activity that your staff is involved with, are there any big gaps that you see right now? Or it is just about everything moving at least in the right direction?
Well, I would say we see a lot of positive support and energy and wanting to move forward. I think the issue of cost allocation is always going to be a challenge. And that's where it's going to be absolutely critical that we're comfortable working off of some common information and able to negotiate arrangements appropriately that work for the different parties. You know, I do believe that one of the shortcomings we saw in the FERC Order 1000 process was a structured evaluation process that some viewed as potentially dictating how cost allocation would take place. And that raised obvious concerns that I think it took years for us to be able to overcome. So I think this whole issue, the biggest issue for me on some of this work is ensuring that we have the right framework for good open discussion and that stakeholders and participants in projects also are able to engage in a way that they feel they're able to have a seat at the table and working out an appropriate cost allocation framework on an individual project basis, as opposed to being at risk of something being imposed on them. I think that's absolutely critical. And I do believe a few years ago, there was a lack of trust around that issue. And it certainly set back progress on a number of good projects. So that's the important part, I think, for me is the most critical issue, is to ensure that we're keeping good open dialogue going in the West on potential opportunities and with people able to feel that they are in control of their own destiny when it comes to participation and cost allocation.
Neil, thank you. Member Decker, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, so this is kind of a rhetorical question. So for the things that are planned that are not, that you haven't really even started yet, do you see any of them being built in less than 10 years?
I think 10 years is a pretty reasonable target date for much of these larger transmission projects. You know, Transwest and SunZia had spent many years working on routing opportunities and permitting issues. Perhaps years before there was actually an off-taker that was in a position to make firmer commitments. I do think, though, that when we're starting, if we're starting on projects that have firm support up front, that can keep that 10-year number as a reasonable target. But I have a hard time counting on anything moving forward, to count on something moving forward more quickly than that. If it is possible, that's great, but I wouldn't. We're considering the 10 years as a reasonable starting point.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Hey Neil, it's Rebecca. Just a quick question on SWIP North. Did DOE announce any support for that, or am I confusing that with cross-tie?
No, the DOE did indicate support and did select the SWIP North project for participation for a capacity contract. And this is largely, as we understand it, it is largely a backstop mechanism that would allow the project to move forward, given that our Board of Governors have approved ISO participation. And while we understand the discussions with Idaho Power are going well, those arrangements aren't in place yet. And LS Power is concerned about their schedule. So we do see this participation by the Department of Energy as an initial mechanism to take an initial position to participate in the project to be a very good development. And subject to the work with Idaho and LS Power reaching completion, our understanding is that then Idaho Power would pick up the other portion of the capacity for the project, and the DOE position would be backed out.
Thanks, Neil.
Scott?
Yeah, thanks, Dale. I just have a comment, that's maybe broader in scope of this presentation, and that is, Chair Campbell mentioned that we don't vote on transmission. That's not within our wheelhouse, but we're certainly interested in it because markets operate on top of the transmission. So you have to have the transmission, there has to be lots of it. And this presentation is very interesting. If we're going to have presentations in the future on transmission, I'd like to see other perspectives other than this one comes from the Cal ISO. I know there's Boardman to Hemingway, there's other transmission going on out there that maybe we should get a peek at and have presented to us that's more regional based.
Yeah, excellent, Scott. I'll pass that on to the next chair.
Okay, good. He's right next to you.
I was listening.
Yeah. Neil, I had a question. This is Andy. So there have been a lot of, it's not uncommon, especially during stress conditions. There's price differences between Northern and Southern California. And that affects, of course, buyers and sellers in the state, as well as the interregional flows, whether it's Southwest to Northwest or Northwest to Southwest. And I see there's no projects in the new transmission plan that are described as economic projects, but I guess, are there projects that are in the plan that you think could have the effect of relieving some of that congestion within California?
Well, the study of the internal paths and the economic benefits is something that's reviewed every year as part of our annual planning process. And we do quote the amount of congestion we're forecasting to see in our transmission plan and prioritize which areas get a deeper dive on studies. And you're right, to this point, we have not found an economic basis for reinforcing Path 15 or Path 26. In terms of some relief, especially on Path 26, the SWIP North project would provide some relief on that path by providing another parallel path to the AC network. But beyond that, one issue that we do want to explore in the future within our own economic study framework is that our economic studies are based largely on average conditions. And one refinement that we're hoping to move forward with in the future is to start looking at more of the what amount of economic value is provided during conditions that may only occur once every 3 or every 5 years, perhaps, but that provide significant economic benefit when they do occur. And I'm not talking about extreme events. I'm talking about conditions that are still within a reasonable bound of occurring with some frequency. So that's something we do not recognize we need to look at in the future, as well as to see what other benefits those projects can provide. So that is something that we will be continuing to review in our annual process.
Thank you, Neil. So now we'll go to public comment. Operator, can you please provide instructions for public comment?
As you move to public comments, feel free to place yourself in the comment queue by utilizing the raise hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. When it's your turn to be unmuted, a pop-up message will appear prompting you to approve the host request to unmute. Please also state your name and affiliation. Okay, I see no questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. We do have at least one public comment in the room.
Thank you, governing body members. Vijay Satyal for the record with Western Resource Advocates. This is a very helpful presentation from Neil, and so Neil, thank you. One of the big issues that I think Member Prescott identifies this extremely well, evaluating market performance and how markets are working cannot happen without the linkage of transmission that's inherent to it. In the most recently completed WEC planning processes of the base case, it has come to my attention that actual projects that have been approved have not been included in those base cases. So it might be creating extra work for Cal ISO staff, for the other regional planning groups, other TOUs in remodifying the existing WEC data set that they take to do future planning assessments. So I wanted to verify if Neil doesn't mind confirming that is very concerning to me. If Boardman Hemingway project has been approved, it's legal and binding to be on the ground moving forward. is not getting reflected in the latest white cases that are supposed to be used across the system for scenarios and planning. So I don't know where and how this can be looked at, but this is area we hope we can address so that future work with Order 1920 and other regional planning group work as consistent databases being used.
Thanks, Vijay. Neil, do you have any comments on that?
I think my only comment right now is we are in the midst of starting another one of our interregional coordination effort processes. So this is something we will check into. So thank you for the comment. We will check into how that's being handled in the material that's just being coordinated on right now as we start our next coordination process.
Thank you, Neil.
Okay, any other comments in the room? Okay, thank you very much, Neil. If you're joining us late, we've already covered items 6 and 7, so now we will go on to agenda item 8, briefing on policy initiatives and the EIM governing body planning calendar. So I will introduce Anna McKenna to kick off this item. Anna is Vice President of Market Design and Analysis at that California ISO.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. I have the pleasure of introducing Becky Robinson. She will be providing you a briefing on a number of stakeholder initiatives and efforts engaging stakeholders in market design changes. And she will be covering some of the stakeholder initiatives that will eventually fall into your decisional classification, and some also for informational perspective that do not provide for informational purposes. So with that, I will turn it over to Becky.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you, members of the governing body. Becky, yes. Thank you. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. So first up, an update on our extended day ahead market and day ahead market enhancements. With the receipt now that we have of the FERC order on the EDAM access charge that we just got on June 11th, the EDAM tariff is now fully FERC approved, all aspects of that. So we were very excited to get to that milestone. But the work continues. So next month in July, we plan to hold a day ahead market enhancements stakeholder meeting, an implementation stakeholder meeting to provide a testing timeline, testing approach, and set expectations on communications and engagement with stakeholders. And you may recall that we, when we brought you the day ahead market enhancements for approval to you and the Board of Governors, we spoke about having these implementation working groups to really kind of get into a conversation with stakeholders about testing and refining some of those tunable parameters that relate to the imbalanced reserve product and how we're going to implement that and coming to a more common understanding of what seems like the best way to do that. The meeting next month is a bit of a precursor to that process. We're not quite ready for that process yet, but this is certainly starting that conversation and I think level setting on the path forward for that to follow up on our commitment for those implementation working groups. And also in July, that's a go. Suspense. Okay. Also in July, again and this follows up on a comment that Jim Shetler made this morning. We are planning to initiate a new policy initiative to enable and support SC trades, inter-scheduling coordinator trades in the Western Energy Imbalance Market, EDAM. This is a functionality that we have today within the CAISO VA for sort of sub-allocating revenues and charges between scheduling coordinators. And we expect this to be sort of a streamlined effort. We expect to see support. We're happy to engage with market participants, but we don't expect it to be controversial, is what I meant to say. So looking forward to starting that in July. Yes.
So in terms of the tunable parameters, are these going to be, where it says stakeholder meetings, are these workshop meetings or are they stakeholder, the old, more traditional stakeholder meetings? What are, like, I just need to understand what you're actually going to do.
Yeah, so it won't be sort of stakeholder process in the sense of draft proposal, final proposal, board approval. It's much more geared towards implementation. And we have, we have stakeholder implementation meetings today, and related to testing, new functionality, and so forth. So I think it'll be, a little bit along that vein, but also a little bit new, because we are really trying to not just, I think those typically look more like, here's the new functionality, stakeholders, get used to it and develop familiarity with it, and you have conversations about getting everyone on the same page about how to use the new functionality, what it does, what it doesn't do. These for the day-ahead market enhancements will be a little bit of a new flavor added to them, but I would say kind of layered on top of that is for the imbalance reserve product. These are the levers, if you will, as part of the design that got FERC approved, board governing body FERC approved. These are the levers that we have to sort of refine and fine tune that new reserve product, and working through with our, not just the policy team, but with our market analysis and advanced analytics team, sort of the options for that, and hearing stakeholder input on that, kind of charting the way forward from there.
So I think there was a lot of concern about what attunable parameters mean. So just going back to the stakeholder comments. So as you have the analysis, I'm gonna presume that what you're providing is gonna be very transparent, and they'll be able to say, oh, this makes sense. And with if this is the goalpost of the tenable parameters, people will be able to see that because of the analysis you're gonna provide.
I think, Mark Rothleader, I think that's the intent, is to be engaging, sharing analytical results, seeking some feedback, but ultimately getting to the point where those tuned parameters, the action parameters, get tuned to the point where everybody understands how we set them going into implementation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before you move on, and it's just a comment that it's not news that FERC approved the grid access charge, the EDM access charge, but I'm just glad a lot of smart people were able to put that together. And I realize this filing here was the explanation, but it really is significant, and it really is a make or break issue for EDM being able to move forward and for participants to be able to sign on. And it really does plow a lot of new ground. And, it is a challenge when you talk about cost shifting and how you keep people neutralized as far as not being adversely impacted by these changes. And it's tough. And that whole debate of whether something should be permanent or transitional is another challenge. And if it's gonna be transitional, how long? And so, a lot of kudos to everyone who commented on it and helped shape it, and to the people who actually put that together, because it really, everything else is technical. This becomes money. And we know what people vote on. So it's important, and thanks to everybody who contributed to making that happen.
Yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, I think implicit in that statement I hear, there are folks at the ISO, but also with our regional partners, making sure that.
Absolutely. I know there was a lot of debate. I know there was a lot of meetings. I know there was, a lot of angst and previous, in last year, and get things done this year. And no small task. And it's really remarkable in getting there. I mean, most of us have some history of dealing with managing and how you get there. And so the three components are a terrific way of achieving this.
Thank you for that comment. If we could go to the next slide, please. All right, next up, the Western EIM resource sufficiency evaluation enhancements. So on our phase 2 efforts, we are progressing towards where we've got a July 1 target date, so just coming up in a couple weeks for final implementation of our phase 2 efforts on resource sufficiency evaluation. This relates to the aligning the market e-tags to the market results and an operator tool to enable curtailments as necessary. And so we are in the final stages of getting that all in place and expect that to be in place here shortly. And then for phase 3, no real update here. The team is still progressing on the analysis needed to kind of lay the foundation for those continued conversations on resource efficiency evaluation. I do want to also highlight, sort of connected to this a little bit. There's we are planning on starting a set of conversations with stakeholders on a new initiative on Western Energy and Balance Market unscheduled flow. And what we're seeing and hearing is that there are some locations in the Western market footprint that are susceptible to congestion from unscheduled flow, and we want to get ahead of that issue. And so just wanted to flag that for you all here. We'll come from that.
Becky, a question on phase 3. If this is terminology, I hear, and our market expert has been focused on phase 2, track 3. So what are we missing?
Great question. Okay, so yes, I think what Anna's saying is that perhaps she's focused on the first bullet, which I think is the phase 2 policy effort. And from an implementation and project perspective, I think maybe that has been split into multiple tracks. And so the phase 2 track 3, I believe, corresponds to the first bullet here.
Okay, just as long as we're clear, because we give her direction based on the moniker, the name of what the initiative is. So
let us spell that out for you and give you clarity about what's in what phase and what track, and that way you can provide clarity to her. Okay, I think we owe you a mapping to be there.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you.
Second question, the unscheduled flow, you're describing it while this slide is up. Is it part of I guess where does that fall in the world of policy initiatives?
No, fair enough. It will be a new standalone initiative. We're not going to group it in with RSC phase 3, but it relates to the resource efficiency evaluation in one sense, because a possible way to address the issue of unscheduled flow is using the existing resource efficiency evaluation test to provide more transparency to BAs, so that they can see the RSC run congestion impacts if their base schedules are resulting in congestion.
Just to add to that, there is already a feasibility test that is evaluating whether there is congestion in the base schedules. The expectation is that if there's any congestion from the base schedules, the entity will work through that and resolve that before the market starts. We're not always seeing that to be the case, and that's where the unscheduled flow starts to perpetuate, and then we have congestion in the marketplace itself. So that's why I think it's tied to the resource efficiency feasibility test part of that evaluation.
I have a follow-up question, Mark.
Yes.
So I was hearing before, so as described, it really is to understand how the market might be creating impacts to unscheduled flow, as opposed to the other way around.
It's actually a little bit of both.
Okay.
There's unresolved congestion potentially in base schedules and other flows that are before the market starts. Once the market sees that congestion, the market is effective in providing solutions to solve that congestion. Operationally, we've got to deal with the actual congestion. financially, we want to make sure that the cost associated with that redispatch, to the extent that is unresolved, unscheduled congestion due to unscheduled flow, there's proper accounting and allocation of that cost when that occurs.
Very complicated and going back to unscheduled flow mitigation plans. Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Got
Yeah,
it.
and I don't want to get too much, there is an operational aspect of it.
Yep.
Unscheduled flow mitigation, enhanced curtailment calculator tools.
Right.
And then there is what does the market do and the financial implications of that.
Going forward, Chair Campbell, to your question, I think we'll have a standalone slide on this issue. We didn't today because we haven't kicked those conversations off yet with stakeholders. And I foolishly thought that we might just mention it and not give you a lot of detail. So especially luckily we've got Mark.
It's an emerging issue in certain locations. It's not everywhere, but as the patterns change, we're starting to see some of those constraints start to crop up.
Thank you. So this next slide on rules of conduct and penalty enhancements, not a lot to update you on here, other than to say, since we last met, we've issued or published a revised straw proposal in response to some stakeholder feedback. We are still targeting September, bringing this initiative to the board and governing body for approval. Thank you. And okay, now on to our price formation enhancements working groups. So when we last met, we brought you an item related to bidding above the soft offer cap, which you and the Board of Governors approved. Thank you again for that. We and again, to recap, this was to allow limited energy resources like batteries and storage battery storage and hydro, to include their opportunity costs in their supply offers, even when those opportunity costs exceed the $1,000 soft offer cap. We were successful in filing that with FERC on May 31, which was our target. Comments on that at FERC are actually due tomorrow. So we'll be watching those closely to see what stakeholders have to say there. And then we asked for a 60-day order, so hoping to see that back at the end of July. And we are still internally working on implementation processes to be able to put this in place August 1st. That's okay. On the other price formation enhancements topics, we are working on a discussion paper. Those other topics that we've been working for a while now, being scarcity pricing, BAA level market power mitigation, and fast start pricing. We are working on a discussion paper to publish to kind of chart the trajectory forward on each of those three topics, to say, this is how we see, based on what we've heard in the working groups and the feedback we've gotten all along the way with comments from stakeholders and the conversations there. This is how we would propose to address these issues. And we plan to publish that next month and get stakeholder feedback on that. But to really kind of set up not just the next couple of meetings, but to say, hey, let's move some of these topics more into the detailed policy development phase with iterative proposals. And we're still working on what the cadence of how to address those topics would be, but expect to see that out next month. And then finally, I'll just mention that on sort of some of the follow-on work that we mentioned last month when we brought you the bidding above the soft offer cap matter. Since then, we have had a stakeholder workshop on the maximum import bid price, the shaping factor, which decomposes those hourly block prices. Decomposes the bilateral block 16-hour on peak prices into hourly values. That had good attendance. We got good comments back. I think we are we got the support from commenters that we wanted to see. And so we are planning to proceed with that improvement to the shaping factor, so that we kind of get that better that improved hourly decomposition from those bilateral prices for purposes of the maximum import bid price. And then on another front from that, again, that follow-on work from last month, I would say stay tuned for stakeholder meetings to kick off on some storage topics where we saw the storage default energy bid was really sort of a logical next step to look at following you know, what we did last month on the offers bidding above the soft offer. Any questions on this? All right, so maybe we can move to the next slide. So greenhouse gas coordination working group. So the working group, as you know, has been working on a topic, a number of topics. One of those topics in particular, how to address non-priced GHG reduction programs, is one that the working group has been continuing to work on and engage with, let's say, the large stakeholder community, including state regulators, as well as market participants. And I think this particular issue is likely nearing progression into more detailed and iterative policy development, while some other issues I think are likely to continue in the working group type of conversations on that. But so I think, again, it's a little premature now to sort of say, but well, I think we're getting close to a discussion paper to kind of round out, here's where the working group has been and recommendations for moving forward on certain items. Any questions here?
Sure. Question in the room. John Hammond, Idaho Public Utilities Commission. On the GHG coordination working group, you know, there was a discussion of non-priced states, non-priced issues. What about states that don't have, you know, we don't have a non-priced state, we don't have an RPS, but what about that interest?
Yeah, no, great question. And I when I first heard the term non-price GHG reduction program, I was confused because I was like, well, there's states that have a price and states that don't have a price. And this is the third category.
Yeah.
But no, great question, because I think it's important that the market rules work for all the states, regardless of their posture, whether they have a GHG price, whether they have a non-price GHG reduction program, or whether they their GHG policy is not to price it or to otherwise make requirements about it. And so I think the goal of the way that we address GHG in the market is to satisfy that principle that it should respect the state policies regardless of what those state policies are. So for instance, I think you know, on the question of how does if there's an impact on prices because of things we do in the market to account for GHG compliance programs, those states who don't have GHG, the states who do not have a GHG program should not see the price effects from states that do have a program, right? So I appreciate that's an important interest to keep in mind and keep on the table in those conversations.
Yeah, definitely. And that's not only in this group, but in the other market, sorry, bring up the other market, it shall remain unnamed. But Harry Potter, yeah. But, you know, some of the concerns that have come up, does the GHG pricing, does it essentially affect the price or set the marginal price for energy on the market? And how do you, if Idaho doesn't want to, you know, if regulators in Idaho or somebody doesn't want to pay that cost, how do you ensure that we're not paying that cost?
If I could add to that, so that's been the principle and the design of the GHG from the Western Energy Balance Market initial design. We've had to make some refinements for other purposes, but the idea is that for a non-GHG regulation state, the price of any resource serving load in that area is not impacted by the price. Now, to the extent a resource in that area is deemed to be supporting exports to serve a GHG region, there is a price effect, but that shouldn't affect the load in the areas that do not have a GHG control or pricing mechanism.
Can I add one more thing to that feature, to the total package feature, that resources that are in other states that don't face any GHG type of regulation may also choose not to sell into an area.
Exactly.
And we have the mechanism for flag themselves out and volunteer.
Yeah, I would think there'd be disincentive to sell into that. Most of the, for example, if you're selling in Washington, it's likely that it's not going to be a carbon emitter, or that would not comply with their programs. But could be wrong. Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, our gas resource management working group. Again, since I think actually when we met last time, we had just published the discussion paper on this, sort of saying this is sort of the report out from the working group, what the working group has discussed, and recommendations from stakeholders in the working group. We published that, I think, when we last met around that date. We got comments back, largely supportive of how we had framed the issues, and we are working on now, kind of internally working on an issue paper and straw proposal that we are aiming to publish in July. So looking to kind of move that into policy development. Yes.
Okay, so there's do the issue paper and then there's do a straw proposal, which are two different things. So is the straw proposal, so this has been a long time working on this because there's so many other things to do. So I want to appreciate that, but this seems like it's been a little slower than I would have thought it might have been. And so the straw proposal, is the straw proposal going to be, here's the straw proposal based on the working group, and it's going to move into a decision, or it's going to move into some other new policy for another 4 or 5 months? What are we actually doing here?
Great question, and it's a fair observation. So I think one, we're still working on it, so I'm not 100% sure yet, but we are looking to see, can we do a combined issue paper straw proposal to cut down on some of the to make more meaningful progress sooner. I'm not positive that's going to be the result, but we're working on that. But I think once we get to the phase of once we get to a straw proposal, I think we would look to get feedback from stakeholders as to whether how good is that at solving the issues. But then I think we would, and so I think we're open to having more working group conversations if we need to at that point. But I think once there's a straw proposal, then it's sort of on the road to becoming a draft final proposal, then becoming a final draft final proposal, and then coming for board and governing body approval at that point. Now I don't know how much. I think there's potentially some work involved in this, so I don't want to telegraph that it'll be a fast turnaround item necessarily. But I think
I guess I'm just trying to understand that. So the working group has been working. So is there still not enough consensus within the working group about the approach, or is it?
Can I try? Yeah, I think part of it is that some of the solutions, something they're working out, whether they could do that with an existing policy. So some of that time that's been spent by working group and the ISO is making that determination. So I think what you'll see come out is maybe not so much as much policy change, but practice adoption that can be done with an existing policy.
What I wanted to add, actually, that the benefit of that work was actually sort of sifting out some of the things that were much more specific to individual participants. And what we have seen through this time, it took a little extra time, we were actually able to work out a lot of those things. Pretty happy to see that. What's left now are those things that are general and require tariff changes to complete. And you know, the working groups are not always structured or can't always come up with a design proposal in and of itself. But this working group did give us a lot of feedback and input to now move that design faster. Some of the feedback we got was that they wanted us, the ISO staff, to actually start formulating those proposals based on the feedback we got. So I think that's a good progression of that effort. And as Becky said, once you get into that straw and drafting proposal phase, you are really now designing those elements on the remaining issues after we went through all the sifting that we did. So on some issues that were really participant specific items that we ended up addressing.
So this is a really, for me, a good example of when we do the policy updates, we're kind of like, you know, one page or 2 pages of everything. And there's a couple of things I think as a governing body, we maybe need, it should be a discrete, here's the time. This is something, you guys have done a lot of work that we don't know or don't see, yet we still get questions about this. So I think there's a couple things that need to be a little bit more than lumped in with everything else, I guess. And this for me would have been one.
Talking in terms of this briefing, in terms of the briefings we received at the meetings.
Yeah.
So sort of separate briefing on this itself.
When there's specific things that you guys know are definitely a priority for us, and like this was one that was kind of a, you know, those ones I think deserve a little bit more what's going on with them than the highest level.
Substantive briefing, not just a very hard process.
So if you guys could just maybe take that as a takeaway.
Yep, we will.
Thank you for that. All right, any other questions on that? Okay, and you'll notice, so now I sectioned out some of the following topics, which I think we can go ahead and go to the next slide, but.
Actually, here I was thinking, we've been experimenting a bit with the format of these briefings, but I was thinking for this, so there's 3 initiatives, which are initiatives where in staff's judgment, you thought the governing body might be interested in, but there are items that fall outside of our joint authority. And maybe take this more as be not proactively update on these 3, but go to the governing body members, if there's any governing body members which would like a briefing on one of these 3 items or have questions about it, then we'll kind of go to it. Otherwise, we'll kind of leave it as informational. So the 3 items, one is on California resource adequacy, one's on the California ISO BAA's resource efficiency, how that works in the day ahead market, and the other is the wheeling topic. That's okay. So just go to if members have any of these 3 items that they would like to spend any time on.
I'm sorry.
Vice Chair.
And you pulled up the right one for me. As usual. And so I don't need a briefing. I just want to ask a question on this. And that is, you know, post summer, we'll probably want to do or ask for maybe an evaluation on how things went. But where we stand today, and here we are now in mid-June, what does the status appear right now? Does it appear that requests are being fulfilled for the transmission service that's been requested? And again, and I know it's really tough when you have a very different resource mix and a different environment from region to region, you know, year to year. But is it still robust in the request, or did they drop off a lot? But Mark, you did say that at least the requests are being met.
The requests that have been submitted are being met, where there is legitimate points that they have go from to. There was one that was not a legitimate scheduling. We couldn't satisfy that. Okay. But otherwise, the vast majority of them are being satisfied. The amount of the volume of requests is a bit lower than historical wheel throughs that were coming in through high priority wheel through from previous years. Whether that's because there's not as much demand and supply conditions have changed, or it's because the new policy, we can't tell that. I think that's something we'll have to try to detect after the summer though.
Right.
But for what is being requested, they are largely being satisfied and awarded.
Okay, thank you. That's really all I wanted to ask.
So to that point, because there was so much chatter about this, what is the ISO doing more publicly to let people know, hey, this is kind of where we are, either in a trade press or in some fashion, that's more clear?
I think it's something that we will consider. I think we wanted to really get the full process up and running. We just are turned on the intro monthly request, so we wanted to see how that played out. So I think how we play that is probably sometime towards the end of the summer, we'll be in a better position to come out with some statements along those lines.
I hope you'll consider that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just need to spend a little time debunking some stuff.
Yeah, overall, I think we're very happy. I think it struck the right balance in terms of our expectations about what we were going to see and what we could satisfy. But we didn't want to take credit for that prematurely until we saw the summer play out.
The other questions, comments on this items?
Okay, then we'll go to public comment. Oh yeah, sorry. Jumped in, there's a.
No, that's okay. Here we have our policy initiative process diagram that just kind of shows the different phases of that. And then I think the following slides are this, the graphic here showing again the phases of the different initiatives and where we see those going for the rest of this year. And that's on 2 pages.
If I could say for Anita's prior question, you can see what the expectation is for the gas coordination initiative on that slide. Take us to Q4.
And I could just say that's very helpful. I like the way that's organized. You can at a glance say where the decisions are. Very helpful.
Thank you.
I agree with John. This is a nice format. It's easy to read, and it gives you a very good status with a lot of information.
Just asking, would you want this to be the center point of the discussion and then we talk around it? Or do you like the details of the slide previously? We could maybe next time to start here and just talk, and then we can dive into some of the substance just for this slide.
Maybe we can find a way to use slides first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because then because if the slides are more clear, then this just says, okay, here's where we'll be at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
I see there's a page 2 also.
Yes.
They're kind of stacked. I had to figure the orders on this one.
We could just go to the next slide. Oh, you did.
Yes. With that, I think that's all from me.
I do have a question on our calendar.
Next slide.
Next slide, sorry.
No, because that slide got updated at the last minute and the policy calendar was not added. So they're seeing it, they may have that standard.
It shows no decisional items in Q3 or Q4. Or Q2, and so I thought we did have I thought we had a decision item in July. Oh, the name.
What's our name?
That's not initiative, got it.
Yeah, although we may have something by the end of the year on the item we just shared with you on management of that unscheduled flow consequence. There may be something, but it's so early, we just haven't really mapped that out.
Yeah, as long as you're gonna bring it up, then you can look at September on the rules of conduct being in that area. Just,
Yeah.
I know it's hard to keep up with the date when you got multiple places that appears.
No, thanks.
There is that.
Thank you, Becky. Now we'll go to public comment. Operator, can you please provide instructions for public comment?
Once again, if you'd like to make a public comment, feel free to place yourself in the comment queue by utilizing the raise hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. And when it's your turn to be unmuted, a pop-up message will appear prompting you to approve the host's request to unmute. You will be unmuted upon approving this request. Please then state your name and affiliation before asking your question. Once again, you can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And at this time, I see no questions.
Thank you. We have a question or comment in the room.
I do wanna just express my
Can
appreciation.
you please
for-
identify yourself?
Oh, Councilor Ward, Portland General Electric. I wanted to just express my appreciation for the rapid implementation and I think the stakeholder consensus on the price formation enhancements. We experienced, and I think many of us in the Northwest experienced a really challenging January season with the winter storm events over MLK weekend. And some significant high prices during those events that made particularly hydro and storage management very challenging. I shared those comments with both the RIF and the governing body in February, and I think it's just remarkable that we have a FERC filing with a significant amount of stakeholder support that will hopefully bring those enhancements into the market ahead of the summer season. I'm working on my comments right now, hopefully to get them filed with FERC. But I do think that it's just like, it's one of the fastest and stakeholder processes I've seen, showing, I think, a lot of consensus, a lot of really good work from the ISO and from the governing body to ensure that we're really targeting the specific issue at hand with the real-time market and not taking up more, changing more than we needed to in order to get the result of it.
Yeah, yep. Kudos to staff for this process. Stakeholders. Any other public comment? Okay, thank you. So now we'll item 8, informational reports. Do members have any questions about information report? Just policy initiative milestones update.
I don't have my PC, but I didn't see a budget. Normally we see a budget.
Quarterly, so even.
Oh, okay. So we'll see it in July.
I think that's correct.
Okay, thanks for being on top of that.
Right on.
Money? Anything else? Okay, with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
That concludes our conference. Thank you for using IntelliEvent Services. You may now disconnect.